Okay, we're good. So right now, we should be on.
That's it.
And it's broadcasting. So test 1 2. Test 1 2. Test.
And the microphone, we don't need a microphone. Obviously for out here we don't, but
No. We're just gonna. I'm gonna have everyone come in and sit close.
then
So
for the video.
The
is that-
video, it's picking you up right here.
Okay.
So you're like, if we look at the green, we're actually broadcasting right now. Test
Okay.
1 2. Test 1 2. So
Okay.
we're actually.
So that picks it up.
Yeah, it picks up pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
We tested it out. Oh yeah, here we go.
What is this cord you were? Was this for the audio? Is that the other cord?
You could put
I
that
won't.
goes into the audio.
Okay.
Pretty cool, really, when you think about it.
Yeah.
It probably just again, I want you guys that are presenting to just sit right here. Everyone else in the center. Everyone in the center.
I've got it, James.
Yes, because I'm about to die.
Yes, there it is out there.
So he's just going to unplug Jenny,
Okay.
and you're just going to come up, unplug that.
Yeah.
So when you unplug,
Okay.
Here, Jenny.
plug right in. And it's going to take a second, and there you go.
Okay.
So that's how
And
we
how do I get Chrome on here?
Yeah, hey guys, just have a seat anywhere in the center. Anywhere in the center, please. Are you gonna
Well, James and I were going to do today's meeting.
okay, do it. So just log in and get it up and I'll plug in. Guys, up here, sit down. No one passes Regina all the way forward. Regina's my last.
You know, I was going to sign and leave. You would never know.
What's that?
You had the sign up sheet way there. I was going to sign and leave.
Yeah.
I've been trained by Jared Delmeyer.
Someone's got to take over.
Grab something?
No, just sit anywhere in the, Regina's the last, bring up the last row there, so anywhere between here and Regina. Wait.
Want to pull back?
No, I don't have, hang on. I've got it set up on the, we're broadcasting live right now. So you can see, this, so I got it set up.
Okay, we'll just leave it. I won't have to keep on.
Yeah, they,
People, human environment, interaction, movement,
yeah, just
location.
that's broadcasting, yeah, just use MS User, and then Chrome's on here, right?
Human
We're
environment.
gonna start here in a minute. I'm gonna start.
Where's your camera?
It's right here.
On front, sofa?
Region.
Center section, right up anywhere in the front up here, so you can see the screen.
Are you gonna stand right in front or have to?
Yeah, they're gonna be just right here. So as long as you can see the screen, you'll be fine.
Yes, we're just young.
All right, Jason, you ready to roll?
Are you going to introduce it?
Yeah, I'll do an introduction. All right, I got 240. All right, hey, we're gonna start. 240 is what I got. Just as you guys are coming down, just go ahead and have a seat somewhere up front. All right, so today and next Wednesday, we're going to focus on, it's called our Tech Showcase. And I have several teachers that have volunteered to show you what they have used in the classroom this year in terms of technology. So we're going to break this down today and next Wednesday. And the idea is for you to just sit and watch and soak it in. And you may say to yourself, hey, I've done some of this, and that's great. Hopefully you'll pick up a couple ideas today when you leave, and something that might excite you for next year to incorporate into your curriculum and your lessons. So I'm going to let Jason take over. He's going to talk about what he did. We're going to then have Jenny, Susie, and then Dan Olson's going to conclude today. We're not going to tell you a whole lot about how to do this. We're just going to showcase what has been done with the hopes that if you want more information, we will get that to you to help you do this, maybe for your classroom next year. So, Jason, floor is yours.
Thanks, Brian. Volunteer, though. There was money involved in it. Okay, so these are just a few of the things that I've done in the classroom. By no means do I feel like I'm a tech expert. It's been nice being part of the Chromebook pilot, but let me say that there's a lot of learning that goes on, and it's pretty daunting at first, but there's a lot of resources out there. I follow blogs. There's a lot of YouTube videos that are very short. I've used those with my students as well, so I don't have to teach them, but I use them also to learn. So while it might be kind of daunting, if you just kind of jump in, it makes a lot more sense, and I've gotten a lot better the more and more that I've used it. I'll start with Glogster. It's an online poster, and I know some teachers at Wilson have used it before. I've used it the last couple of years, and I've really enjoyed it. I think they're getting rid of Glogster.com, and it's just going to be Glogster.edu, which is really nice because you can set up into classrooms. This was one of the projects we did toward the beginning of the year. You can see it's multimedia. Students can use video that the student did, pictures, text, music, also the national anthem would be playing if I clicked it. And so students have a lot of ability to be creative, use multiple sources for information. There's also a comment section, so I've used this for peer editing and a social media aspect to it. It can be private, just for your classroom, or it can be public. You can up the ante a little bit with your students and say, hey, we're going to publish this. They're okay with it. So this is one of those that I did. I would also say I've used it as effectively, maybe more so, when I've created the blog for some kind of content, especially with Common Core stuff where you're looking at different sources of information, maybe a video, maybe a text. So as a teacher, you can use this and then just share this with your students, and then they can have all the online resources. You have some headphones there, they can listen to videos, they can compare and contrast to a written source, something like that. So that's an effective way that I've used it, or I've seen it used. Something else we've done, we did a lot with Google Docs, and I know Susie's going to be talking about that in a moment. Hopefully this reloads. I just want to show you a component of Google Docs that I found really effective. Shannon Harding brought this to me. She shared it, so constantly learning from each other. The students use the research tool, and this is just over on Tools, and then Research right there, and then this box comes up. And let's say I wanted to use the first picture as Christ the Redeemer. So I just type that in, and then if I'm in that box, I can choose to look for everything. I can use to just look for pictures, quotes, other things like that, and then it'll have a whole bunch of stuff for me down below, and then when I pick something, let's say I really like this article, I can cite this. I can cite it right there. So the students have been citing their sources all year, and it's really easy, or they can insert links. As you can see, this student in particular had this, and then it creates little footnotes down there. So you don't have to mess with a third-party source, like EasyVid is what I've used in the past, things like that. It does it right there for them. And this didn't take them a long time. I think this student did this in 2 days. the class grades. As far as putting it all together, writing the descriptions. Another component that I've used has been Google Maps, and they've kind of changed this. So for the last project, they did a travel itinerary, and they picked 7 spots in a South American country that they wanted to go to, and then using Google Maps, they created the itinerary then, and so they included little images and then descriptions throughout all 7 days of their spring break vacation, which is what that was. I've heard some really cool things, literary trips and things like that, where your students could maybe follow a character, obviously in history, with battles or migration, immigration, things like that. I think it'd be effective with. And then you also have Street View on Google Maps, which is pretty cool, pretty engaging to the students. This is Christ the Redeemer. I stayed with the theme, and the students then can have a panoramic view here and can mess with it. And then, if I can get up there, so then they can also see. They can see it as if they were there. So it's kind of cool. The students kind of get hooked by that. But like I said, just a few things that I've used. I would say try to just use it for helping student learning. I think try to avoid just using technology to use it. I made that mistake a few times, and it didn't really, I think, impact the learning. But I found some tools that have been helpful, and I continue to learn and get better at it. So if I can be of any help, let me know.
Thank you. All right. Next, Jenny Weeks is going to come up, and she is going to talk a little bit about something that I think you'll find very interesting: self-grading quizzes using Google Forms, and also YouTube, right? Embedding a YouTube video. So I'll let Jenny take over.
Okay, I guess we're going to do a review poll first. So we've been talking a lot about assessments and how they should drive your instruction. So we were at the end of we were getting near the end of Unit 2, and I took all the different skills that I wanted the kids to know for their test, and I asked them, how comfortable are you doing this? And so it's sort of a Likert scale. They did on a scale of 1 to 5, of not at all comfortable or I have this. And so they went through and they answered this poll for me. It took about 5 minutes. I have a couple of ways I can look at my responses. I can just view them in a spreadsheet, maybe, which, you know, if you really want to know what every kid said on every question, you're going to look at the spreadsheet. But I was more interested in looking graphic. I like graphs, they make me happy. So I was looking under summary of responses. So what this tells me is when I'm ready to do my review, I really don't have to spend a whole lot of time on a couple of these things. And so, whoops, I am off the edge. Let's see, there we go. As I go down, I kind of can focus what types of things do I need to spend my time on when it comes time for the day. And so that was really helpful, and it was a way for the kids to sort of focus. Okay, my test is coming up, and I know all this, but I really don't know that. And so it not only helped me focus, where are we going to review, but it helped them focus, where do I need to study. So that was a Google form. And then, let's see, self-checking spreadsheets. So this was a day we were doing Sage and Scribe. So up in the blue is my directions. So I said, I want you to Sage and Scribe to answer the following questions. The topic was sales. And so I had one kid was acting on Sage, and they're going to give clear and precise step-by-step directions. The other kid's going to do the work, and then when they decide on an answer, they're going to click into the box next to the question. And if they get it right, it's going to turn green. And they know they've got it right. So then they move on. And if they do it wrong, it's going to stay red. And it was just amazing at how engaged they were. And they kept saying, how many greens do you have? How many greens do you have? And they kept saying, this is red and I don't know why. And they would work at it and work at it because they really wanted everything to be green. And it was amazing how little I was involved and how engaged they were. Those are really easy to make as well. So that's a spreadsheet. And then, let's see, get rid of some of this. Okay, I got a new phone. So then I had to play with it. So Morgan and I were out shopping one day, and I totally mortified her, and that was just a fringe benefit. But I was shopping, and we were doing sales tax, and so there was this vase that I wanted. And so I videotaped the vase, and it was on the sales rack, and I set up this whole scenario. It was really windy that day. Of course, filming right there in public with my teenage daughter. Let's see if we're going to have volume. Nope, no volume. Okay, anyway, there's the vase. It's 80% off. I'm talking to the kids. You could hear it. And then I say the sales tax in Davenport is whatever it is. How much did I have to pay the cashier? So that was their opening. They watched the video. Then they had to work through from that video. Again, I wasn't doing a whole lot. They had to listen to it and had to rewatch it as many times as it took them to be able to figure out the important information. They're working with a partner. So they went through, they figured out what was important. Some of them had to watch it once, some of them had to watch it 5 times, but that was okay. Then they had to create a plan. How am I going to solve it? Here are my steps. This is the math reason I'm going to take. They're going to come up with a solution. All this time they had that video paused. And when they think they have the answer, they replay until the end. And at the end, I've got my receipt. And there's a lot of, ooh, we got it right. Or there's a, oh, we're off by a penny. So this was, again, a lot of student-directed. I was just walking around answering questions, but they were extremely engaged. They wanted to have that right. They worked it. And the kids that were off by a penny, by golly, they went back and they're like, okay, we're going to figure this out. They went back and they did it until they got it right. So there's a couple of those YouTube videos. Okay, so that's spreadsheets, forms, and YouTube.
Thanks, Jen. All right, Susie, we've talked a lot about Google Docs this year, and Susie's just going to share some things that she did specifically with Google Docs. So, Susie, I will let you take over.
Okay, first one is Tried and True Reading Strategy of an Anticipation Guide. My clinical student that I had this past year actually created this one, where before the students read, they answer true or false, and then after they read, they answer true or false, but you can simply just have them highlight, maybe. They can highlight whether they think it's true or false. Okay, maybe not. Double click. Oh, no. Okay, anyway, you can, up here, you're able to highlight, okay? So if you highlight false, and then you come up here and you highlight it, you can highlight it. So they would be able to highlight what their A response was, whether it was true or whether it was false. And then they can go ahead and they can read their text, and then when they're done, they can go back and they can mark whether or not it is in fact true or false. You could extend this if you wanted to, or if your answers were false, you know, how could you make it true? And then at the end, we put some close reading questions just to have them go back into the text. And then the students had these out in front of them so that they were able to do a turn and talk, and they were engaged with sharing what their answers were. So this was just a simple anticipation guide. I've used YouTube also as well. Although when I did this activity, YouTube, we couldn't use it in the classroom, so I ended up having to show it because we wasn't ready yet. But with this one, what I did was I was intermixing. We had read the text Snowflake Bentley out of our literature book, and I wondered if there was a modern-day Snowflake Bentley. So I Googled it and found out that there was. His name is Kenneth Lee Bricht. And so I wanted the students to learn more about this modern-day Snowflake Bentley. So I found a piece of text about him, And then I found some YouTube videos that were interviews with him. So the students had to click on this, which is text, so that they could read it. And then they were to watch these videos. And then there was another video for them to watch as well. And then at the bottom, there were some questions for them to answer where they were incorporating what they learned about Kenneth Liebrecht from the videos and from the text, and then also incorporating what they had learned about Snowflake Bentley. So you had your media and you had your pairing of your texts in here. I do a lot of performance tasks with my students using Google Docs. Rather than having them write it out, they will simply just use a document. This one is where they had to select certain words that they felt would describe Snowflake Bentley and Kenneth Liebrecht, and then they had to go back and support their choice of word using evidence, and the evidence could come from any of the videos and or from any of the text that we used. This one is connecting multiple texts. So this one we just did a couple weeks ago. We were working with this essential question, how do we overcome tragedy? And we had read an article in Scope Magazine about the Boston Marathon bombing. And earlier in the year, we had looked at the poem Invictus, and we'd read about Malala from Scope Magazine. So I went back and drew upon that. So they had to reread the Invictus poem, and then they had to reread the Malala article, which you can find as a PDF here. And then they had to answer some questions incorporating those two. We were also working on central idea at the same time. So they had to think about what the central ideas were that were in common, and then they had to incorporate what we had done with the Boston Marathon bombing reading. And then I also showed them a video of President Bush's speech after September 11th, and they had to incorporate that when they're thinking about central idea. And then they used all of those as a culmination to answer that question, how do we overcome tragedy? And they had to use text evidence to support it. And then, let's see what else. I get one more up here. Oh, yes. This one was just working with central idea again. And this was a sheet that the students filled out, generating their own ideas so that they had some ideas for discussion before I paired them up with, it was either a shoulder partner or their face partner, so they could do some discussion. So it's a good way, Google Docs is a good way for them to get their own ideas down, so that when you're having discussions, they can actually refer to it, rather than everybody's engaged in doing it, rather than saying, okay, turn and talk, and one of the partners just sits there and does nothing. So it's a good way to keep them engaged.
We talked a lot about Google Docs, and next, Dan and Kelly are going to come up, and they're going to talk about today's meets. But with Google Docs, the one thing that I was going to mention with Susie's examples there is that for her to get those out to her students, she just simply was able to share those, and she didn't have to run off all those papers, which is really nice. So Dan, he's going to explain today's meets, and then Deb Youngblood's going to show us an example of video, and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay, today's meet, in an attempt to apply, include a little more technology in the classroom, Kelly and I did some brainstorming, and one of the things that came up in our brainstorming conversation, Remind 101, which Matt brought to the table earlier on. I started early in the school year. Kelly brought up today's meet, and so we toyed around with that, and we found multiple uses for today's meet. And if you haven't seen it, I think you're going to really like it, and especially in terms of formative assessment, it might be a really nice anonymous way for the students to maybe respond and put up on the board something they're not understanding or something they do understand. And as you see it, you will see, start seeing the multiple uses that you could do for this. If you just go to the website, did you have any? No, I'll do it. If you go to the website, as you see, this is what's going to pop up, and you have to create a room. So I do this for each one of my class periods. And so when I do that, name the room, I just put Olson, and if it's my second period class, I just put 2. And then usually what will be written on the board is the today's meet, and you can kind of see it right under here. It says todaysmeet.com/Olson2. That's what you would put on the board. So as we started also having the kids using their handheld devices, their smartphones and such in the classroom, this is one activity that they can do with their smartphone. So we're just going to invite you. If you have your smartphone right now, if you could just pull up your, let me create the room. Also, when you create the room, if it says 1 week right there, if you leave it at that, that will stay there for a week and all your comments. I usually just make it for an hour, and then after an hour, that all goes away. So the next class period, next day when they come in, I would just recreate the room real quick. So, it says not available, so I'm going to just try 3 for, I don't know. Don't log in yet. It won't work. Great, wouldn't you know it. Wilson, we'll just do Wilson 1 here. Keep it short. All right. Hey, that works. All right, now we're logged in. So on your Google search bar in your smartphone, just type in then that today'smeet.com/Wilson1. And as soon as you do, it's going to ask you your name. So you have a student type in their name, or if you're doing something anonymous, you want to do a formative assessment, they can give a fictitious name maybe. Type in your name, and then you click join, and then the first person that does, just say hi or something, and you'll say, okay. So things start coming up. And then, okay.
And one thing we did notice is that kids would start having conversations with each other. Hey, Billy, what's up? And so you kind of get that out of your system and then say, okay, starting now, stay focused. So
we started tying this in. With our Remind 101, I would oftentimes send review questions home as a text message to the kids. And then the next day, our opener for the class would be those questions again, because not every kid has a smartphone getting text messages. So for those that did, though, it allowed them to join right in, answer the type in the question that I sent via Remind 101, and then we would have discussion. Kids would come up with the answers, and then we could kind of formatively assess what were they getting the message from the day before, just kind of a review from the day before. So.
And another thing about this is that kids are having questions and they're teaching whether you can print out a transcript for class. So if there's some kids in grade 5 that have
It's also was a fun way to do our reviews, and you can see you can easily incorporate. No, it isn't. It wasn't. My button did fall off today. No, we would do reviews though before a test. You can incorporate this in different Kagan structures, and so. If each team at least has one person with a smartphone, they could be the technology person to put the answers up there. So you could review for a test in kind of a fun way like this.
Yeah, so our first question that we were going to pose to all of you is using adjectives to describe Jerry Bellmeyer. So,
and he's not even
here. And he's not here, so.
He answered though.
Yeah, he did.
Hello.
What was it? We had another question.
We did, what are your plans for June 3rd?
First response, who's got it? Let's see who's quick at texting. Applause.
What's the delay time?
It's pretty quick. It's pretty quick. Sleepy. Yeah. And that's basically it. Now, after an hour, after you're done with this, in an hour, that transcript will be gone. But if you save it for 3 weeks, if you log back into that very same site, you'll have that same transcript there. So if you like a clean slate all the time, you just adjust that early on. And then kids just got used to knowing what their login was for today's meet, and they got used to that. So we did that for the first half of the year pretty regularly. it's slacked off a little bit, but I think it's something I definitely will include next year. Maybe not every single day, but I'll throw it in there periodically. So.
Yeah, thank you. All right. And while Deb, we're going to get Deb's computer plugged in here. She's going to show an example of WeVideo. There's also like other websites out there, like Poll Anywhere is an example of where you can incorporate your students' smartphone devices. We are right now looking at going to one-to-one down the road, and I know some people are sitting there saying, well, I don't have Chromebooks, but you know, that's an example. Dan's class, as we're looking at the bring your own device as well, is, you know, there's lots of resources out there that cost you nothing to get the kids engaged. And you know, really, I think technology, we're seeing all these examples up here. This is just a tool to increase engagement. And you know, what you're seeing, the common theme here is the kids are being more and more, it's more and more in them. You know, it's just today's meet's making the kids follow through and ask those questions and get them engaged versus just sitting there raising their hand when you call them. So, Deb, I will let you close it. When Deb's done presenting WeVideo, we are done with the meeting. So.
We read a novel, The Giver, and that was before there was news that The Giver was coming out. We had just heard it. So for one of the classes, their role was to create a book trailer, like a movie trailer, and they could also incorporate their smartphones with that, and they could drop in videos, images from the web, or they could use themselves. So here we go. This is one of them. They worked in groups.
Report to the auditorium for the annual ceremony to begin.
Students, please come to the stage now. Notice is not going to sign. Notice is one. Courage, wisdom, integrity, hope. Notice your touch on your
Jonas, take some of my pain.
They give you this, the class. she also created a bloopers page for that trip. But a lot of them did it using WeVideo, or they went on YouTube directly. So we have a limited amount of Chromebooks in our room, and we made them work using their devices and working with them. So it's been a good thing. It's been a very good thing. I'm done.
Yeah. In closing, one of the things that, here's a great example. We're talking about assessment and how do we know if our kids are learning, and creating a video like this, the kids spent time on doing it, but watching it, then demonstrating that they obtained the idea of that book in a video, giving the kids the opportunity. She mentioned, Deb mentioned YouTube. YouTube actually has a video editor built in. A lot of people don't know that. If you go to YouTube/editor, you can upload any video and go in there and cut just like you would do with iMovie, and kids can figure that out really easily. I don't think, Deb, you didn't have any training on editing videos, did you?
No.
Yeah, kids figured it out.
They were showing Shannon.
Yeah.
And Shannon was in the room, and she was, so they had specific questions for the differences of video. And at that time, the video was very limited, but they expanded it. And so I had to sign up also for them to share it with show it.
Yeah. I'll just close with this. Next Wednesday, we're going to do similar. I know you guys are just sitting, not very interactive today, but we're hoping that this maybe puts a little fire under you a little bit. You get excited about maybe looking at the opportunity to use some of this technology for yourself. So have a good day. Make sure you sign the sheet. We'll see you.